Testing 1, 2, 3. Hello.
My first time as well. Oh, well, yay. Oh. See, this is interesting. I want to see you in your element now, isn't it?
This is my element. Take a seat, everyone.
No, of course. Yes, sir.
Yeah? Welcome. The psychology of chess today. It's a long time since we've done an intermediate and advanced workshop. It's been like 4 weeks now, yeah. But it's okay, we're back. We're better than ever, hopefully. How's everyone doing?
I'm okay.
Good? Any highlights of the week so far?
Been a busy and shit week, but thank you for
Busy and bad week, yeah. That?
yeah, so
Yeah.
also coursework.
Coursework, yeah. November is like that. It's very busy. But we get through it, you know. December comes, Christmas comes, we all forget about it. It's all good. The psychology of chess, right? As you're all aware, these intermediate and advanced workshops, they're all about a discussion group about chess, pretty much. About like intermediate and advanced concepts in chess. And I'm a psychology student, so the psychology of chess is really important to me. Psychology is the scientific study of the mind, and chess is a mind game, pretty much, in a way. Like, the psychology is really important in chess, so that's why I wanted to do it on this. I've got a couple of learning objectives. We're not really learning objectives, they're sort of discussion points, I suppose. But essentially, we're trying to figure out what the main causes of anxiety are when playing chess. So we're going to go through blunders, the opponent, and long chess tournaments. And we're also going to try and figure out some strategies together that can help us improve our chess. Just a disclaimer that I'm just a student. Like, even though I'm a psychology student, I'm not a professional. I'm not like a sports psychologist or a therapist or anything. So if you need like proper help or anything like that, then we're all here to help you. Like, even though you're both on committee, like, and yourself, you're part of society, like, we're all here to help each other, and of course, you're not alone. So, we'll get started, right? The psychology of chess, right? So, you guys interested in, like, physical sports?
Yeah.
Yeah? What are you interested in?
Tennis.
Tennis? Fraser?
Not really, no.
No? George? No? So, in tennis, in swimming, in F1, I love F1, right? You've got to be as fit as possible. You've got to be as healthy as possible in order to be the best, right? And having like a healthy body means that you can perform the best you can. And chess is a mental sport, right? Chess is all in here, right? In the head. So in order to do the best possible thing, like to be the best at chess, you need to be good at psychology, right? You need to be able to train your mind, right? And you don't have to be good at psychology. You need to have people around you that are good at psychology. Fortunately, you've got me, so it's all good. And like I said here, psychology is a scientific study of the mind and behavior, and chess is a mind game. So the two go together very nicely. I've got some reflection questions for you throughout this session, because this is an intermediate advanced workshop. These are sort of like discussion groups. So I've got a couple of reflection questions. What do you think is the most psychologically stressful part of chess for you guys? If you could pick like the main one that's the most stressful, what do you guys think?
I was doing my levels many years now.
Hello. It's okay. Hello.
I had to, I play online chess a lot, but I stopped because I hated seeing my elo go down. I hated the decrease of the number, and it stressed me out so much. I basically stopped myself playing online chess.
Okay.
It wasn't good for me. I got very angry.
So elo hell, pretty much. Okay. What about you guys? What do you think?
When I'm playing against somebody who's better than me and I start losing, I just learn to give up a bit, I guess.
Okay. So higher rated players than you, pretty much.
Yeah.
Fortunate for you, we're going to talk about that today. So that's good. Josh? You don't have to answer, of course.
It's like the most stressful. When I'm most stressed, it's when it's like you've been playing a classical game. It's now a time scramble, and the position
Okay.
It's the worst.
Yeah,
feeling
yeah.
ever. But you know you have to push most of the time because usually it's an old man, so you have to push.
Yeah, you've got to do something.
We'll also talk about that as well
Yeah.
in the session. Yingxin? Blunder? We're also going to talk about that. So, basically perfect, right? So we said blunders, elo hell, uh, losing, losing to a better opponent, and
Like time scramble.
time scrambles, yes. So I've picked like 3 of the ones that I think are the most difficult to talk about pretty much. And those are blunders, as you said, the opponent, as both of you have said as well, and time, as you mentioned as well. So kind of the opponent and time together. So, so we'll start with blunders first of all. And just for people that don't know what blunders are, they're basically like silly mistakes or errors in judgment that people can make when you're playing a chess game, right? For example, you can lose a pawn in one move. You can lose your queen in one move. You can call it a Botez gambit, but it's not really a Botez gambit. It's a blunder, right? And it's not really the blunder that's the most important thing that like gets you down. It's the negative self-talk that comes after you make the blunder. That's what gets you, right? Because you can always recover from a blunder, right? Anything can happen in a chess game, right? But it's the negative self-talk that you might have that is as bad as a blunder or maybe even worse than the blunder, right? And it's because if we focus too much on like the negative self-talk, it sort of like impairs our decision-making pretty much. So I'll give you an example. Like if I blunder a pawn, for example, if I'm playing like a classical tournament and I blunder a pawn and it's to someone like, it's like a really good opponent and I blunder a pawn and I'm thinking, oh God, like how have I done this, you know? If takes and this, and I lose a pawn, how did I not see that? Like that's going to impair like the rest of the game because I'm always going to think about that pawn that I lost 20, 30 moves later on and I'm going to lose the game, right? And so there's this like diagram kind of thing that shows you how negative self-talk can like impact your games. So once you made your blunder, you're sort of in like a shock state, like, oh dear, how have I done this, right? And then the shame comes of like, oh, I'm so bad at this game. Like, how have I done this? This is so bad. And self-criticism afterwards, I'm so bad at the game. I should never play chess again. How am I losing to this guy, you know? And then impulsive moves comes after that. It's just like, oh, I'll just make some random moves because I want this game to be over because I don't want to remember that I made this blunder, you know? And you can see like how badly that affects your games, right? Negative self-talk, as I said before, it's probably even worse than actually making the blunder itself. So I've got another reflection for you. How might you deal with that? What kind of things might we do? Obviously, I'm going to talk about it later on, but I just want to get your opinions on like what you guys might do to deal with it, I suppose. Also, if you have like any experiences of it, then feel free to share it. But of course, you don't have to. As part of these,
What I usually do is like after I blunder, I then reevaluate the position like from scratch
okay,
to figure out how bad it is, and then if it's not that bad, then I'll be thinking of ideas to scam it all, basically. But I feel like if you don't like a blunder, it's kind of a big waste of time if you just sit there and chat shit to yourself.
yeah. Okay, so that's entirely what like we're going to talk about later on. So you mentioned like reevaluating the position pretty much. So sort of like taking a step back and just looking at it from sort of like another fresh set of eyes pretty much.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good. Hello. Any other ideas?
I agree with that. I just try to move on with the game.
Just to move on pretty much. Okay. So that's pretty much like what we're going to talk about because there's this thing in psychology called cognitive diffusion. Pretty much there's this one therapy called acceptance and commitment therapy. And essentially a part of that is cognitive diffusion, which is essentially what you said. It's sort of stepping away from your thoughts and trying to make sure that your thoughts don't control you, right? It's all about the idea of distancing yourself away from your thoughts rather than being so like involved with your thoughts. You got to step away and sort of take a fresh set of eyes of it pretty much. And this is really important in chess because, as we mentioned before, like if we blunder and we have this like negative self-talk, we can sort of like go lost in that rabbit hole of all that negative self-talk, and that again impairs your judgment. So taking a step back and sort of realizing what your thoughts are can really help you in like dealing with these negative self-talks. And how we do this is this diagram again. So we take the thought, we add some distance to that thought, and what that does is it reduces its power. So in terms of blunders, right? I'm so dumb, I blundered my pawn, you know? If takes, then the knight hops in and he takes the pawn, and oh dear, right? That we've mentioned before, that's a pretty bad way of thinking, right? So instead what we need to do is take this thought and add some distance to it. Sort of be like a researcher and just look at it, right? I'm noticing that I'm feeling very dumb after blundering the pawn. You notice the difference in tone, right? So the difference in tone is that before it's, I'm so dumb, I blundered the pawn. Oh no, like, this is so bad. Whereas adding some more distance is sort of like, you're looking at it from a different angle and you're not really that attached to the thoughts, so that you're not really like affected by it as much as this one previously. And so that reduces the power of it pretty much. So it doesn't exactly fix the blunder, right? The blunder's happened, right? It just improves your way of improving, like it improves your way of dealing with the blunder, right? So it's the same in acceptance and commitment therapy as well. So if you had like a traumatic event or something like that, you can't fix the event. Like you can't go back in time. You don't have a TARDIS. You can't go back in time and fix it, right? You gotta figure out a way you can deal with it by looking at it from another angle and sort of taking a step back and having a fresh set of eyes. So as I said here, the distance has not fixed the blunder, but it improves your mental paralysis after the blunder. And so that what I talked about before of the, what's it called? Of like the spiraling, pretty much. That doesn't happen anymore. We've got another reflection question. So in terms of not just blundering, there's other aspects of chess that we can implement this cognitive defusing. What might that be? And bonus question, how might you implement that? First of all, did that make sense, first of all? Like taking a step back from your thoughts. How might you implement that into other parts of chess, other aspects?
Maybe if you've got like a winning position and then not designing and they keep it and you're like, I really don't want to, like I should just be winning from here.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of thinking like, instead of feeling like I really don't want to lose, it'd be really embarrassing if I lose the advantage here.
Mm-hmm.
You could be like, I'm noticing.
Yeah, exactly. So you're noticing that you're winning, instead of like completely stressing out that you're winning but you might lose it, right? You're noticing, you're taking a step back and you're noticing your thoughts instead of being so engulfed in it, pretty much. So that's good. Yeah, I like that one. Any other thoughts? Any other ideas?
I guess similarly, when you become overconfident after doing well,
Mm-hmm.
you might force you to push too hard and then create opportunities for your opponent.
Yeah, exactly. So overconfidence, you start pushing, you're pushing all your pawns because you start thinking, oh, I'm winning, but that might lose you the game, So taking a step back, even taking a step back from the chessboard itself, looking at it from a fresh perspective and sort of just noticing everything rather than being so engulfed in the fact that you're winning, right? So I like that as well. That's a really good idea. Anything else? No? Okay. So I told you guys that we're going to do 3 different things. So we're looking at blunders, we're looking at the opponent, and we're looking at something else. I forgot what it was. But the opponent, right? So the opponent is really important when it comes to playing over-the-board chess. Because if we're playing online, we'd have absolutely no idea who our opponent is. They're just a profile picture. Or if we're playing in Z mode, they're just moves, right? You can't really see who your opponent is unless you're playing over the board. So this section kind of focuses on over the board stuff, where you can actually see your opponent. And when you do play over the board, your opponent can be like a really big influence in how you play the game, because as humans we're all biased, even though we might not like it. And the thing is that once we see our opponent, once we know who our opponent is, even if we see them, we sort of have stereotypes about them. And the main two stereotypes that people see is age and rating in chess. So there's this really big stereotype in the chess world that young kids, like if you play a tournament and you get paired against someone that's like really young, like a 5, 6, 7-year-old, you're shaking your head, exactly. You say, no, I hate this so much, I don't want to play against kids, because you think they're so good, right?
They're just underrated.
They're just underrated, exactly. And you mentioned this before, like a couple of weeks to me as well, that you always play against old guys, right? In the LRCA games, you always play against old guys. And exactly. And there's a stereotype that they take so long to calculate. So you can just play like some crazy moves, and they might not know how to deal with it, and you might win, right? Because they have slower calculation times. So in terms of the opponent, like, I want to pose you a question. It's not on here, but like, do you think it's a good idea to do this? Like, to sort of analyze your opponent and figure out sort of like stereotypes about them? Sometimes, yes. Always?
I'd say no, actually, because I've
No?
been playing these over the board LRCA games for like a while now, and I've noticed that there's such a big, what's the word, spectrum of people. I see someone who's like 70 plus. They could be anywhere between like 1,400 and 2,000. You won't know to yourself.
Okay.
I try to tell myself that before they beat me.
Yeah. Okay. So, I'm going to share some personal experience as well. As I'm like, it's pretty similar to everybody else as well, but kind of similar. I played one LRCA game last year, and the opponent seemed like pretty confident in their abilities. Like they seemed like they were really like a good player, but then like I was starting to think, oh dear, like what do? They seem really confident in their abilities, so I should play a bit more passively, right? And you sort of notice this like when you're analyzing the game, like how you deal with a certain opponent, right? And personally, I think you shouldn't, right? Personally, I think you should see the chessboard as itself, right? You should, for example, like if you're playing Magnus Carlsen, for example, Gotham Chess versus Magnus Carlsen. This is a really good example. Like every time Gotham Chess plays Magnus Carlsen, he always like gets in his own head and like he's like thinking, oh, I'm playing Magnus, I've got to do this, this, and this. But then every time he plays on Zen modes or like turns like the names off, he's always like there's this clip of him that he turns it off, and he doesn't know he's playing Magnus, but he plays like so much better, right? So the opponent has such an impact on our games, right? Have you guys noticed this in your games? Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually a opening choice for me.
Mhm.
It's the thing I've heard. Against kids, I'll play. There's a gambit line I play against d4 that I'll play against kids because they're less likely to know the theory in it.
Mhm.
Whereas if I play Grunfeld, for some reason, every child knows like 70 minutes theory. So I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So I do play differently, and then I know like, usually if I play golf against like an old man, they won't go into the gambit line. They won't take the free stuff.
Mhm.
They'll just play like E3 and just be like, I don't need an advantage. Like,
Hello.
just have an equal position, and that's not.
So it's interesting because you said that you play like different openings for different people. So if you're playing a kid, you play a certain line or a certain opening.
Yeah, yeah. So
But
you don't know the theory.
but if it's like an older person, then you might not play that line because they probably know it, or they might not know it.
I don't think I vary the moves I play
Mhm.
based on my opponent. I might
So it's kind of like a double-edged sword as well. So I think that if we play certain lines against certain people, judging like their characteristics, so if they're older or younger, whatever it is, it's a double-edged sword because you think you know them, but you don't really know them. You're going off previous experience, right? So you probably played kids before a lot. You probably played older people a lot, and you sort of grow these stereotypes about them. But it's quite dangerous because there's always going to be one exception, right? You're going to play an older adult that is really like cognitively sharp, like they know how to do time scrambles. You never know, right? So it's always good to play the board as it is rather than play the opponent, pretty much. So I think I mentioned it here, playing the opponent rather than playing the actual position in front of us. So how can we stop this, I suppose? Obviously, you said that it may be a good idea in some positions, but in the case of like the positions that it isn't a good idea, how might we prevent this? Also, I have some snacks over there, so if you want to take them like through the session, you're more than welcome to. I'll bring it to you whilst you're talking. If you guys want them, I'll bring it to you afterwards. Or you can come to sit to the main table as well if you want. It's completely okay.
I'll grab it first.
But yeah, how might we like stop these stereotypes? How do we prevent like our assumptions?
It's more likely for me to accept a draw if I'm winning
Mhm.
from older people or kids. Because for older people, I think they're so old, and then for kids, I think they are kids.
Okay.
I think you do the same thing. Like when the people you're playing is a kid, and then offer you a draw, and then even if you're winning, you take the draw.
To be fair, when a kid offers a draw, my experience, they know it's a goddamn draw, so I take the draw.
Good.
Mhm.
I do have some trust in the kid because they are actually like half machine, I think, sometimes. So when the computer says take a draw, you take a draw.
That's another interesting thing that I want to talk about is you mentioned the word trust. Like you trust your opponent to know certain things, right? So
If I
how
think
is
as
that?
well, yeah.
What about them do you trust? Like you never met them before, but how do you trust them?
Well, usually if it's towards like the end of the last half of the game, I've seen how they play.
Mhm.
Of course, I've seen maybe I might know their rating. I might, well, I've not seen them before, but so it's like they played solidly. I know they're of the age group that is quite sharp and
Mhm.
quite dedicated to learning chess. So if I think it's a draw and they also think it's a draw, I probably will call it there and agree to a draw. If I think I'm winning and they think it's a draw, I might play a few moves and make sure they prove me wrong, like prove me wrong and right.
Okay.
I do have a certain. I think they are somewhat competent.
Okay. Fair enough. You also mentioned something that I found pretty interesting as well. What did you say before? Because it's off the top of my head.
I said when they're old people and kids, for old people, I think that they're old.
Mhm.
So if they offer me a draw, I agree a draw because they're so old.
Mhm.
If they are kids, if they offer me a draw, I take a draw because they are kids.
Okay. You mentioned before as well. Like I vaguely remember this, but if you think that you're winning, that you take a draw because of your opponent as well. I think. Did you mention that?
Yeah, that
Yeah.
that is why, because I think just give them a draw and then just to not like I think in my personality I'm avoiding conflict.
Mhm.
So there is some sort of me dealing with requests.
Okay.
I'm very tend to agree with when people ask me for, let's say if I'm not winning a queen or a rook or something like that, I tend to agree with the draw.
Okay. That's interesting because the thing that we're going to talk about later on. So I've got two things over here. is that when you're winning, you said that you sort of like asked them for a draw anyway, but you gotta look at the position as it is rather than. So even if you're winning, I feel like it's a good idea to push for that advantage, right? Because the position says that it's winning, so, but because of the opponent, you're saying that you gotta give them a draw anyway.
Yeah, I don't think like rating is too much matter for me, but I think maybe make these people happy is an important thing.
Okay, that's good. I like that as well. You know,
That's too nice.
too kind.
Too nice.
That is why I should come to this competition because I have a problem.
Fair enough. But pretty much like what I wanted to talk about was if I play a tournament like the Birmingham Rapper Play, that's the main tournament that I play in. I go like just before the pairings get released, or actually when the pairings get released, I always look at who they are and like how old they are as well, and that sort of like determines how I sort of play pretty much. So instead of doing that, I feel like we should ask ourselves, what assumptions have we made about our opponent's skill and why? So if I like look at the pairings and I see it's a 57-year-old man who's like, they're playing as white, and I make sort of assumptions that, oh, they're a bit older, so I'm going to play so and so like in a different way. And so instead of doing that, I feel like what I should do, and what I probably recommend to everybody else, is that you should stop looking at who they are. Just try and like figure out what assumptions you made and sort of figure out the position as it is, right? Take the position as it is and figure out the boards rather than figuring out the opponent, if that makes sense. I'm kind of like waffling a little bit, but sort of ask yourself like, what assumptions have you made, and try to make sure that those assumptions don't interfere with your calculation pretty much. And another thing is that when you're calculating a move, try and ask yourself like, would you play the same move against somebody else? Probably because when you're calculating it, you might think, oh, this person might not like. So if it's an older person, for example, you might play something that's a bit more out there, right? Because they might not know how to calculate it, right? So try and ask yourself, if you're playing that like out there move, would you play that against somebody else? And it's sort of like, try and take the opponent away from your calculations. The calculations should be on its own, pretty much. There should be no influence of the opponent. I'm kind of waffling here because, well, I don't really know why I'm waffling, but we'll move on and go to the third concept of time. Because long tournaments are very difficult to do. So we've got the Buka tournament coming up in February. It's sort of like an inter-university tournament that every chess society from every university tries to attend. And it's pretty difficult, I'd say. It's not the fact that like the unis that we play against are difficult. We're all paired against division, so that's not the issue. But it's the fact that it happens throughout the entire day. That's what I felt like the issue was over the last 2 years that I've done it. And I've noticed that every time that I do those Buka tournaments, or any tournament that lasts the entire day, for example, I sort of noticed that my first 2-3 games, they're okay, like they're pretty good. Like I've noticed that I've had like pretty high energy levels throughout those games. But then as the day goes on, it sort of drops and drops and drops, and it goes pretty badly towards the end. And so how do we maintain this energy, right? How do we make sure that we stay sharp throughout the entire day? This should be a reflection question, but I'll leave it up to you. Like, how do you think we can do this?
Breaks in between rounds, just make sure you do something.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just sit down and wait for the next thing.
Okay.
Walk and eat something, do something.
Yep.
Little mental reset.
Yep.
Don't worry, if you're the last one to finish, don't worry if you're a little late for the next round.
Mm-hmm.
Like, make sure you actually reset
So that's an interesting idea about mental resets. If you want to share like how you do that, then how might you do that?
So if I'm at a tournament, say like a rapid tournament, so say take the Birmingham Rapid Play for example. The games aren't as long, so it's not quite the same as a classical tournament, but you finish your game, you quickly like analyze some key positions in it, so that if you play the same opening again at some point, you're not making that mistake again. So you do that quickly. That takes a couple of minutes. Then, like you just go, like you leave the building and walk around. Like I would walk around the car park a bajillion times.
Yep.
Or you can like walk to the, if it's Birmingham, you walk to the car.
Yeah.
Deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, like just do something. Doesn't really matter what it is.
So would you say that something involves chess or it doesn't involve chess? Could it be both?
It shouldn't involve your games. You could go watch someone else's game. That's fine.
Okay.
But I don't think you should think about your game too much.
Okay.
After it's done.
Okay.
You should check for any obvious mistakes you made so you don't make them again, because that always sucks. Because sometimes in tournaments, there'll be groups of people that know each other. So if you play one person, they'll go, oh, I played this opening, he played this, and he did this. So you actually need to check to make sure you don't make the same opening mistake twice. Like you need to know if you did it. But
Okay.
Like, outside of that, it's just do something that isn't related to your own game in between your games.
Okay. I like that. That's really good. Any other ideas? Any like personal stories about like tournaments that you played? If you played any tournaments in the first place? No?
I just slump on a chair and like very bad of me, yeah. Look, I'm exhausted. The last year's bit, well, this year's Buka. Took a lot out of me, so I was kind of, just
Yeah.
melted, stumps to the next round.
Fair enough.
Was not very healthy for me. Did not do good at that, particularly well that tournament. So I should probably walk around the car park a few different times.
Yeah.
I'd say also sleep well.
Sleep
If it's
well.
a multi-day tournament, sleep well.
Yes.
Like prioritize sleep.
Definitely. So what I wanted to talk about as well was we talked before about like the negative self-talk. So, for example, I forgot to mention, obviously, as you said, food, water, and air, right? So make sure that you drink enough water, so carry a water bottle around everywhere. Snack on healthy foods. It's okay. Snack on healthy foods. So, like, there's this clip online of, like, Ding Liren versus Gukesh in last year's classical tournament, the World Chess Championship. And you see, like, Ding Liren, he goes into the cool-down room, and he has his bottle of water, and he has his walnuts that he's just eating on it. It's really funny. But, like, it completely works, right? Walnuts are so healthy.
He lost, didn't he?
Yeah, but But no, because it was in, like, one specific game that he won that game anyway. So
his problem was he didn't eat enough walnuts.
yeah, exactly. So get some walnuts, all right? Snack on something healthy. And make sure you get enough fresh air. So as you said, go walk around a car park. Because obviously staying indoors it becomes claustrophobic pretty much. And so taking your mind off the chess, going out for a walk, going to co-op and getting a meal deal, as you said, it sort of reduces the stress of the previous game so that you're more focused on the next one. And what I was going to say before food, water, and air, was that if you've sort of lost your last game, it's really important to do the cognitive diffusion that we talked about before. Because once your previous games, like if your previous game didn't go well, you have that negative self-talk again, right? So we need to figure out a way to reduce that negative self-talk so that it doesn't impact our next games, right? Because we might realize, so I'll give you an example, like in the Birmingham Rapid Play, I lost a game and I didn't really do all of this. I was like really angry at myself, being like, how did I lose that game? I was completely equal against this guy and I should have won, or I should have been a draw or whatever, but I lost it because of one pawn. And I was so hung up on the fact that I lost that one pawn and I lost the game that it impacted my next game, right? And so as we said before, we got to take the thought, we got to add the distance to it to reduce its power, right? So, we'll give an example. My game went so badly, I'm so mad at myself. How could I lose that game? The guy was 200 points rated below me. Like, I should have won this game. You see how that sounds, right? That tone. It's going into, like, we're spiraling, pretty much. So, as we said before, we got to add some distance. We got to notice our thoughts. We got to observe them, rather than be, like right in there. I've noticed that I'm quite mad at myself for that loss, you know? Kind of stepping away from your thoughts and looking at it from a different angle. And again, that reduces its power, pretty much. So, distancing yourself from the game sort of like allows you to focus on what's more important. So, the next game, or getting some recovery. So pretty much, I think that's all I have. Like, I'm pretty sure we're very early. Yeah, there's probably more that I should have added to this, but it's okay. But I was gonna say, if you guys wanted to play chess. Yeah. I mean, I figure it's. Yeah, we're 20 minutes early. I should play some chess. Yeah. Okay.
We don't have boards, do we?
No.
Okay, we play online.
Play online. Yeah. I guess we can analyze a game on the board. It's okay. Like we can all analyze it together. Yeah. We'll do it. We'll do this side of the room plays this side of the room. All right. But anyway, the next session is. But basically, the next session is in 2 weeks again. I won't be here because I'll be in Paris, so you'll probably have to do that next time. So, but yeah, thank you all for coming, and we'll play some games. But yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
For this.